Coding challenge review, intermediate, 18th of February. Let's see what we got today. Question number 1. We are expected to create a new library of utilities for arrays. How to add elements to arrays, how to delete elements of arrays, right? Append, prepend, delete first and delete last. So we got our 4 methods prepared. So append. Without looking after the details, so append receives 2 arguments, right? First of all, the array, and then the element that we want to append, right? So generally speaking, the way to add an element, to append it means at the end of the list, right? We can do array.push element. And then we are expected to return, when we append, the new array, right, with the new element on it. So then we can simply return array. We cannot do that in one go, right? We cannot do that. If we do that, it won't work, because unfortunately push doesn't return the new array. This, correct, is, yeah, that's another thing, that's not pure. But anyway, and this is, for example, so back to what Aisal mentioned before, unreachable code. So line number 3 is unreachable. It will never run, right? Because we are returning the function on line number 2. So we'll probably get a warning if we try to submit that. So for now, let's just add the element at the end. Prepend, it's pretty much the same story, right? Array, element. So then, how do we add an element on top of the array? Array.what? Push adds the element at the end. How do we add it at the beginning? And shift, that's correct, guys. And shift element, and finally return array. Delete first. So to delete the first element of an array, we can use array.shift. That's correct. You see, unshift adds the element at the beginning. Shift deletes the element at the beginning. And finally, delete last. How do we delete the last element of an array? Correct. So that's the general idea of how to deal with arrays. Let's see if that works or not and why. One question failed. The reason why this example failed is because, look, we're trying to add an empty array and we are returning the new array with the empty array on the last position, which is technically speaking correct. However, the example is a bit special, right? So what the example says is, if we try to add something empty, don't add it. Just return what we had before. That's a bit special, right? But we can deal with that. So, for instance, we can check if there is any element. If there is anything in here, then push it. If not, then just return the array how it was. So we can do if element. So do you think that will work or not, guys? No, why not, Yaf? That's correct. Yaf is completely right. Even if we get an empty array, empty arrays are truthy or falsy. Correct, Poppy. Empty arrays are truthy. Arrays are always truthy. It will still add the empty array at the end of the given original array, right? But we can still control that if we want. We can do, if I got an element and Yeah? If the array has any length, then add it, push it, right? And now it works. I know some of you try to do something different here. There's an alternative, right? You can use array.concat. It's one line. Even simpler, right? That works because of two reasons. First of all, because concat does return the new array, which is a good thing, right? And then, because concat is smart enough to ignore empty arrays and things like that, right? So if we try that, it works. Any question? Let me see what you did. You see Rafa, concat, Natasha, concat. Yeah. Richard, push. Yeah. If name.length is greater than 0. Yeah. All good. Ashley, concat. Yeah. Interesting, Megan. So if we got a string, that's interesting. But what happens if we got an array which is not empty? I don't know, because we don't have that scenario, right? So we'll have to see how to deal with this case, right? Yeah, that's very elegant, right? Because value.length, it also plays well with empty strings, right? So if you got an empty string, according to Jeff's proposal, the empty string wouldn't be added, right? Which is absolutely respectable. Nothing against that. Cool. So question number 2. Oh, transform numbers. We've done that like 20 times already, right? Higher order functions. So I'm going to skip it. Let me just quickly check what you did. Still loading. So here you go. Question number 2, transform, right? It's pretty trivial, pretty fundamental. However, Rafa and Natasha, why n? Numbers, not a number. It's not a number. That's extremely confusing. Don't call it n. Because, correct, if I read n, I will think it's a number, right? But it's a function. Look at, for instance, Ashley and Richard. Fn, function, right? Fetter from semantics. Func, as Megan as well, right? But don't call it n. Yeah, so next question is question number 3. Get the last day of the month. We've done that already, guys, so I'm going to skip it straight away. And question number 4, that's a new one, right? Ooh, that's a new question. That's a new question. Leap year. So we got a date, and we're going to see essentially if the year on that date has 365 days or 366 days, right? It's a leap year or not. So fortunately, at least here we explain the algorithm to determine whether a year is leap or not, right? So we got the date. It's a string date, right? And I prefer not to call it date, because if I call it date, I may think that's a date object, but it's not. It's a string. So first of all, let me create the date object. This is a first step, right? So then, it will be leap year if the first rule is if the year can evenly divide it by 4. That's the basic rule, right? So we can easily do return date modulus 4 equal 0. So if we do that, at least one of them will work, I believe. Let's try that. Well, 2 of them, right? Actually, all these years, as you can see, can be divided by 4, right? 2018, is that correct? No, sorry, 2020 and 2000, right? But this example, the first one is wrong, because 2018 is not a leap year, but we're still assuming it is. No problem at all. Let's keep working on that. because there are multiple conditions, let's check them all. So the year, actually, and that's wrong, sorry. Why that's wrong? Because we are not even checking the date, the year, right? We're checking the date. That doesn't make any sense. So let's create a variable year. How do you get the year out of a date? No, wrong. It's not get year. No. Let's have a look, guys. Look at what happened if I type return year. Let's see what that returns. Ooh. 118, 120, 800, right? That will tell you the lapse, how many years since when? Since 19... Yeah. No. Look, if on 2000 it returns to 100, that means it starts from the 19th, correct? Yeah? Correct. That works better, Poppy. If instead of get year, which is a bit weird, right? It's a bit weird. Get full year. Now that will give us the correct year. Look. 18, 20, looking better, right? Now, because we got the year, we can then simply, well, let's do that again, right? Let's see if the year is divisible by 4 or not. Yeah? And that's interesting because the first three work. This is divisible, true. This is not divisible, false. This is divisible, true. But the last one, we return true because 2100 is divisible by 4. However, it shouldn't. This is not a leap year. Why? Because of the next conditions. If the year can be evenly divided by 100, it's not a leap year. So, to consider a year as leap one, it should be divisible by 4, and the next condition is it shouldn't be divisible by 100, right? Because if it's divisible by 100, it's not a leap year, right? That's a bit confusing. This is a typical example where coding-wise is not that complicated. We just need to play with if-else, but the instructions are a bit weird to understand, right? Sometimes it's on the other way around. And that's, that's a good thing of training, that you get used to code and you get used to requirement gathering. So the next condition, I think it was year, shouldn't be divisible by 100 unless the year, I think, is divisible by 400, something like that. Let me see if that's correct. So if the year can be evenly divided by 100, it's not a leap year, unless the year is also evenly divided by 400. Right? So these two lines are hopefully described here. So the year will be leap if it's not divisible by 100, but if it is divisible by 400, which is a bit weird, right? But it is what it is. So let's see if that works. It does work, right? And if we put the semicolon at the end, even better. Any question? No? You can see code-wise is pretty simple, right? Yeah. And or modulus, that's pretty much it, right? Yeah. Let's see what you did here. You see Rafa, he was close, right? He got the idea. Yeah, so that condition, here the problem is that condition is wrong. So that's correct. Year is not divisible by 100. Or, you look at the parentheses, right? You're closing the parentheses in the wrong place. So that parenthesis should close here. So is year divisible by 4 and either one or the other. Well, yeah, no, I mean, of course, apart from that, right, year, you don't get any year, Rafa. You got a date as a string, so you need to get the date first. Actually, look, everyone failed here, apart from Megan. Yeah, so, and look, Dave was trying to get the year using string split, which I think eventually you can do that, right? But I believe it's much simpler just to convert the string into a date and then do the operations, right? Yeah, so you can see it wasn't that complicated. And so, yeah, I don't know, yeah, we'll have to spec on DevTools, which is what you should probably do, because I don't know, I cannot tell you, right? But even though that approach is also makes sense, right? Oh, that was me. I'm talking to myself. Yeah. Yeah. So even though Jav solution didn't work.
Sorry, not there.
I'm not what?
Not seeing anything on my app.
I didn't get that, Dave. Can you hear me? Okay, anyway. So even though Jav solution, I mean, let me check if the audio is gone, just in case, right? No, the audio is working. Cool. So even though Jav solution didn't work, I found particularly interesting the way, because he tried to approach it in a different way, right? So he tried to check if the month of February on that year had 29 days, which is interesting, right? That's a different way to do that without knowing all the tricks of how to divide and how to get the modulus and all these things. So that's an interesting approach. And finally, Megan, it's pretty much the same thing I did, but she literally transformed my and/or expression into a nested if-else. You see? So if the year is not divisible by 4, it's not a leap year. If it is divisible by 4, you know, it's the same thing, nested if-else, which I think is a bit more complicated, right, if you compare the code, but eventually it does the trick. So all good here. Any question, guys? No? Right, last question, number 5. Ooh, that was tricky, right? How old a person was on a given date. So we got the date of birth of a person, and we want to see how old he or she was on that particular date. Yeah? So if that person was born on the 6th of June of, no, so, excuse me, on the 16th of June of 1942, on the 21st of March of 1960, he was 17 years old. Yeah? Right. So let's start from the basic aspects. First of all, arguments. How many arguments do we have? How many? 2, correct. First of all, let's call it person, right? And then date, singular, right? It's one date. So we want to see how old that person was on that given date. So let's compare years, right, as a first step. So if we do let year equals date dot get full year, so then we can do return year minus person dot, or let me get another variable. Oh no, I'm just thinking what's the best way to do that. Let's try to do it in line. So person dot date of birth dot get full year, right? So if we do that, it's not going to be perfect, but that's at least the idea, right? We subtract the year of the current date minus the year where the person was born. Sorry, but we need to format it, right? We need the message. Okay, so let's create the message. So age equal blah blah blah, and then we can do return person dot name using the correct template literal syntax was age, something like that, right? Yeah, and at least one of them works, the others don't work. Look at this example, right? So this guy, he was born in 1985. So obviously, that date, he was like 11 months or something, right? So technically speaking, he was still 0 years old, if that makes any sense. Does it make any sense? How old your daughter is? She's 0. Does it make sense? No, you said months, right? 11 months, right? Anyway, that goes beyond the scope of this question. So, strictly speaking, checking the years is not enough, because we should also check the months and even maybe the days, right? So let's think about that. So I know that's the age, but then if something happened, then I'm going to do that. If what? If date dot get month is smaller than person dot date of birth dot get month, that's a classic problem. That's for sure, right? So this is a good example. That one, right? So in that particular case, the month we're evaluating is smaller than the month the guy was born, right? Based on that, we should reduce one. But now, we should also check the day, right? Because in that particular case, the months are the same, but unfortunately, for us, the reference day is smaller, right? How do you get the day of the month in JavaScript? How's that? Get date or get day. Let's have a look. So, let's have a look. So we need to change the condition a bit. So if the month is smaller than the month of the guy was born, or they are on the same month, that's the tricky part. If they got born, if we're comparing the same month and the day is smaller, please note that it's not get day. Get day returns a number between 0 and 6. You remember that? It's get date, which is a bit weird, right? But it's how JavaScript works. Get date is smaller than person.date of birth get day, date. So if that's the case, then remove 1 year. It works. You see, it's important to check that. And I'm afraid the example is a bit incomplete, because if I comment that, it may still work. You see, that's not correct, guys. That's not correct. You see why this is not correct? Because what happened if, for instance, let's put one example. Yeah, here, right? If we're checking stuff in July, on the 1st of July, let's say, we'll be removing 1 day, right? We'll be removing 1 day because that condition is not met the reference month is July, is greater than June. However, the date first is smaller than the day the person was born, 16th. So that's not correct, and that's not your fault. That's my fault because we need to add a new scenario here to contemplate that case, right? So just to make sure our solution is as much strong as possible, I'll just put it here. Any question? No? So let's see what you did. Free solutions today here. So first of all, Richard. So he's doing the same thing. First of all, gets the years, and then if the month is smaller than the month he was born, subtract 1. Else, you see he did it perfectly because he's also checking that the months are equal, right? All good. All good. Yes, FYI, Richard, you can do instead of years minus equals 1, you can do years minus minus. Yeah. And then Jav. Oh, wow. Ooh. What happened if we are in a leap year, Jav?
Yeah, it's slower.
Yeah.
Another test case for you to add.
Yes, correct. That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. And finally, Megan. So she's doing if they are the same day and the same month, that's fine. I don't really get that, Megan. What happened if month 1 is greater than month? You'll be removing 1 year, right? Does it make sense? Okay, cool. So yeah, as I said, I need to change the questions a bit to make sure that your algorithms work fine on any scenario. So to me, in that particular case, the question that I would prefer is Richard's one because it covers any single possibility. And I think that's pretty much it, guys. Did I miss anything? Is there anything else you want to talk about in regards to intermediate? Anyone else on the other side of the line? Richard, Dave? No? Cool. So that was it for today, guys. Thank you very much, and see you in 2 hours.
Sorry, Untitled.
Yeah. So who's talking now?
Is it possible just to check on the... It's David, sorry.
Dave, could you?
Is it possible to check on the leap year itself on my mind didn't work?
Sorry. Oh, yes. Which question was that, Dave?
The leap year.
Leap year, Dave.
Because of the hangout.
Yep. Leap year. So is leap year string? Okay. Oh, but I think that's wrong. Look, string dot split, that will give you an array. Can you create a date out of an array? I don't know, to be honest, but we can have a look. So I think the idea is really good, but let's see if we can create an array out of a date out of an array. So we can do let date equals new date. So and then let's return the date Okay, so that looks like that's okay. And then, okay, let me copy the example, and then let's see why it didn't work. Yep, so I'm creating the function here, and then once we got that function, let's invoke it. Is leap year, so 2018. So this is not a leap year. And let's try to find a leap year. So that one, right? 2000, November 30th. So it was 2000. Yes, 2000. Yeah, 2011 30th. That should be a leap year. It's not a leap year. Okay, so let's have a look. Let's set a breakpoint. What's the year? So the problem here is, Dave, you're mixing things, right? Because year, that's not the year. Yes, that's not the year. That's the date object, right? So probably what you wanted to do, because you're creating a date out of another date, so you can get full year. So let's see what happens if we run that. Now you see, now that's true. And so let's see with a falsy case. 2100, 15th of March, that should return false, right? Yes. So that's interesting because that looked like it works, right? If we change that correctly, right? So if we essentially, if we get the year, and actually to get the year, it's even easier than that, right? You can do new date out of the string dot get full year, so you don't need to mess around with the hyphens and things like that, right? So you can do that. And actually, you can even simplify that even more, right? So you can do probably something like that, right? Will this work? Yeah. Yeah, it works, right? That's interesting. That's even simpler. You see? So first we got the year, and then we check, okay, tell me, I'm going to set a date on the 29th of February. What day is that? If it's a leap year, it will say that you are on the 29th. What happens if it's not a leap year? What will that return, guys? What's the 29th of February on a non-leap year? March. Aisel is right. Aisel is right. The 29th of February, if the year is not a leap one, is the 1st of March. Yeah? That's correct. But if it's a leap year, it will just return 29th, right? So this is a very sexy way. I love it, Dave. I hope you got why it didn't work. It was just a subtle detail. Right, anything else? No? Cool, that was it for today, guys. See you in a couple of hours on the review of the expert training. Thank you, guys. Cheers.